You know that feeling, that little buzz, when a project you've been watching finally launches?
Oh, yeah. Like, okay, let's finally see it in action.
Exactly. And that's the feeling we're diving into today with the launch of ReactSpark.
Mm-hmm.
This is the latest creation from Mark Hazleton, the mind behind the WebSpark suite. And knowing his track record, well, this should be interesting.
It really should. What I always find interesting about Mark's stuff is how focused he is on, well, practical solutions.
Right. No fluff.
Exactly. He's got this philosophy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
About not getting sidetracked by sizzle. It's all about tangible benefits, real value for users, for businesses, substance first.
Totally. And that seems baked into everything he does. So today our plan is basically to unpack ReactSpark. Like, what is it really?
Yeah, what are the key features?
And, why should maybe someone building modern web apps, actually care about this? What's the value proposition here?
And we've got some good material to work with. Mark's own articles about the process, the actual code in the GitHub repo, the ReactSpark portfolio one, and even stuff about his broader thinking on development. It gives a pretty full picture.
Okay, perfect. Let's jump right in then. At its heart, what is ReactSpark?
Okay, so in simple terms, ReactSpark is a modern portfolio website. Looks great, fully responsive.
Right.
But it's way more than just a template. It's built using some really current top-tier tech. You're talking React 19.
The latest, yeah.
TypeScript and Vite as the build tool, which is super fast.
So less like a static CV page and more like a living demonstration.
Exactly. It's designed to be a dynamic showcase, yes, but it's also positioned as a reference implementation.
Right.
A solid example for building other React apps. It clearly ties into his WebSpark suite, showing how a modern front end can work with backend services.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned something about a clean separation of concerns in its architecture. What does that mean in practice here?
Yeah, think of it like a well-organized kitchen. You've got your prep area, your cooking station, everything has its place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in ReactSpark, the React's front end, that's purely focused on the UI, the user interface, what you see, what you interact with.
Got it.
And then while the sources don't give all the details on the back end, the structure implies that the WebSpark APIs handle the data, the business logic, that kind of stuff.
So they're kept separate.
Precisely. This separation makes the front-end code cleaner, easier to manage, and just lets it focus on delivering that smooth user experience.
Okay, that architectural choice sounds solid. It's not just throwing features together, there's thought behind the structure.
Right.
So let's talk features then. What are some of the key things ReactSpark actually does?
Well, the first thing you'll notice is probably the responsiveness. It's built using Bootstrap 5.3.
Standard stuff, but important.
Very important. It means the site just works and looks good, whether you're on a massive monitor or a tiny phone screen. You kind of expect that now, but it's crucial to get right.
Absolutely non-negotiable these days. What else stands out?
Another nice touch is the dark light mode toggle, but it's cleverer than just a simple switch. It uses the React Context API to manage that theme state.
Meaning?
Meaning it remembers your choice. If you set it to dark mode and browse around the site, it stays in dark mode.
Ah, persistent state. Nice.
Yeah, it's a small thing, but it really elevates the user experience. Shows attention to detail.
Little things like that really do make a difference. What about content? Is it all static?
No, not at all. It actually integrates dynamic content pretty well. There's an RSS feed reader built in.
Oh, interesting. For what?
Pulling in blog posts, presumably from Mark's own blog. And what's really smart is the fallback mechanism.
A fallback.
Yeah, so if the RSS feed is down or can't be reached for some reason, the site doesn't just, throw an error or look broken. It handles it gracefully.
That shows good engineering. Thinking about edge cases, reliability.
Exactly. It speaks to building something robust. Then you've got some more interactive bits.
Like the weather and joke components I saw mentioned?
Yeah. The weather forecast component is surprisingly detailed. You can search by city, get current conditions, temp, humidity, wind speed. It even plots it on a little map using Leaflet.
Wow, a map too.
Yep. And it remembers your recent searches using local storage, so you can quickly check places you look up often.
That's quite a bit of functionality for just a portfolio feature. What about the joke generator? Bit lighter?
Definitely lighter, yeah. It just fetches random jokes from an API and lets you share them.
They're fun.
It is fun, but it also, demonstrates integrating with external APIs, handling that data, presenting it. Even simple features show capability.
True. And then there was something about real-time chat. That sounds ambitious for a portfolio.
It does, doesn't it? It uses SignalR for real-time chat functionality.
How does that fit into a portfolio context?
Well, the sources don't spell out the exact use case within the portfolio itself, but including it. It's a strong signal.
A signal about his skills.
Exactly. It shows capability in building real-time, highly interactive features. Maybe it's a demo piece, maybe hinting at other WebSpark features. Either way, it's technically interesting.
Okay, so a lot going on feature-wise. You mentioned earlier it's built with TypeScript. Why is that such a key choice here?
TypeScript.
Yeah.
So think of it like JavaScript, but with guardrails.
Guardrails?
Yeah, it adds static typing. You define what kind of data your variables and functions expect.
And the benefit is?
The benefit is huge, especially for bigger projects. The editor and the compiler can catch errors while you're typing before you even run the code.
Catching bugs early?
Exactly. Fewer runtime surprises, code that's easier to understand, easier to maintain down the line. Mark actually talks about this in his articles, like the one on adding the weather component. He really emphasizes how TypeScript helped there. It shows a commitment to quality, to building something solid.
Right, not just hacking something together quickly. And how does that actually look in the ReactSpark code? Can you see it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You see components defined using React.fc, which explicitly types them. You see interfaces defining the shape of data, the props that components expect. Even the application state, how it's managed, it's all strongly typed. It just brings this clarity and predictability that's really valuable. Makes the code much less ambiguous.
Sounds like it would make it easier for someone else to jump into the project too, right?
Absolutely. Much easier to onboard or collaborate. And another big focus, which maybe isn't always top of mind for developers, but should be, is SEO.
Search engine optimization. Why is that so important for a portfolio?
Well, you build a portfolio to get noticed, right? By potential employers, clients.
Yeah, you want people to find it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So ReactSpark has clearly had SEO baked in from the start. It's not an afterthought.
What kind of things does it do for SEO?
A whole suite of best practices. Semantic HTML5, so search engines understand the meaning of the content, not just how it looks.
Right.
Detailed meta tags, open graph data for better sharing on social media, proper heading structure, H1, H2s, alt text on images, which is also crucial for accessibility.
Good point. Accessibility and SEO often go hand in hand.
They really do. Plus structured data for those richer search results. Canonical URLs to avoid duplicate content issues. Yeah. And, of course, the fact that it's mobile-friendly and loads fast thanks to Vite. Those are big SEO factors, too.
So it's designed to be discoverable. That's smart. Let's peek under the hood a bit more. What's the core tech stack look like?
Okay, the ReaDM file lays it all out pretty clearly. We've mentioned the big ones, React 19.1, TypeScript 5.8, Vite 6.3.
The foundation.
Yep. Then for the look and feel, it's Bootstrap 5.3.5, but using SCSS for more powerful styling.
Makes sense.
And React Bootstrap components plus Bootstrap icons. So a consistent modern UI toolkit.
Solid choices. What else is in there?
For routing inside the app, it uses React Router v7.5, pretty much the standard there. Axios 1.8.4 for making API calls.
Okay.
We talked about the APIs it hits. OpenWeather, Joke API, SignalR 8.0.7 for the chat. It also uses XML2JS, likely for parsing that RSS feed data. Leaflet with the React Leaflet wrapper for the map. React Markdown for rendering Markdown content easily. Date FNs for handling dates and times efficiently. And Prism.js for that nice code syntax highlighting you often see.
Wow, that's a comprehensive list. It really touches on a lot of different aspects of modern web dev.
It really does. It's a genuine showcase.
You mentioned Vite's speed, and Mark wrote about using it. What was his take on it based on his article?
Yeah, his article, Building My First React Site Using Vite, really sings its praises. He talks about how incredibly fast the setup is, and especially the Instant Hot module replacement. That means when you save a code change, you see it in the browser almost immediately. No slow full-page reload.
That saves a ton of time during development.
A huge amount. It just makes the whole feedback loop so much tighter. He also mentioned it was surprisingly easy to configure for deployment, specifically to GitHub pages.
Speed and ease of use, developers love that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's connect this back to Mark's philosophy. He talks about avoiding the sizzle, focusing on value. How does ReactSpark reflect that?
Well, I think you see it clearly when you look at why certain technologies were chosen.
Go on.
Take TypeScript, for example. It's popular, sure, but he uses it because it directly leads to more robust, maintainable code. That's a tangible benefit, not just chasing a trend. It reduces bugs, makes the code base healthier long-term. That's value, not sizzle.
So the tech choices aren't just about looking cool, they serve a purpose.
Exactly. His background as a solutions architect really shines through here, I think. He's always thinking about how technology aligns with goals, business goals usually. But even for a portfolio, the goal is to showcase skill and build something solid. ReactSpark's structure, its features, they feel purposeful, not random.
And his articles kind of pull back the curtain on that thought process, don't they?
They really do. They're very transparent. Like the TypeScript one or the Vite one, he's sharing the journey, the reasoning.
Yeah.
And making the whole ReactSpark codebase open source on GitHub.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate transparency, isn't it? It embodies that practical sharing approach. He's not just talking the talk.
That's a great point. Open source as a demonstration of principles. And for others, it's a fantastic learning resource. Looking at the actual code, what does the project structure tell us?
The README gives a good overview. It looks very well organized, logical. You've got your SRC folder for the main code, components for reusable UI bits, context for state management. It follows common conventions.
Standard, but clean.
Exactly. And importantly, there's a docs folder, which usually holds the final build output ready to deploy, and a GitHub workflows folder.
Workflows. So CI/CD. Automated deployments.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
It's set up for deployment to both GitHub pages and Azure Static Web Apps.
Dual deployment. Okay.
And those workflows in the .github folder mean it's likely automated. Push changes to the main branch and boom, it builds and deploys.
That's a modern workflow. Efficient.
Very much so. Keeps the live version up to date easily.
We talked SEO already, but the README emphasizes it again. Anything else to add on that front?
It mainly just reiterates the key things we covered. Semantic HTML, meta tags, headings, alt text, structured data, canonicals, mobile first, speed via Vite. It just confirms that SEO wasn't an add-on. It was part of the core development thinking.
Right. Baked in, not bolted on.
Okay.
This paints a really clear picture. If someone's listening and thinking, okay, I want to check this out, what are the next steps? Where should they go?
Best way is to see it live. The GitHub ReAdme has a link to the live demo.
Interact with it yourself.
Definitely. Click around, use the weather search, see how it feels, and then for the deeper dive, head to the ReactSpark portfolio repository on GitHub.
Where all the code lives?
Yep, all the source code, comments, everything. You can really dig in there, see how specific features are built, how the project is structured. It's a great learning opportunity.
And presumably, checking out Mark's blog posts would add more context, right? The why behind some choices.
Absolutely. His articles often explain the reasoning, the challenges, the journey. They complement the code really well.
Okay. So wrapping this up, what are the main takeaways from this deep dive into ReactSpark?
I'd say ReactSpark is, well, it's a really solid piece of work. It showcases modern web development React, TypeScript, Vite done right. But it's more than just a tech demo. It feels like a practical, well-architected application that really reflects Mark Hazleton's focus on value and robustness over just hype. It's a great example of building something feature-rich, performant, and maintainable.
And hopefully this discussion has given everyone listening a good head start in understanding what ReactSpark is all about, without having to spend hours digging through everything themselves.
Yeah, hopefully a useful overview of the key bits and why they matter.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. In this tech world that moves so fast with new shiny things popping up constantly, how do you strike that balance, between exploring the new sizzle and focusing on building stuff that's actually robust, useful, and delivers real value?
That's the perennial question, isn't it?
It is. And how can open source projects like this ReactSpark example serve as maybe guideposts or learning tools to help you navigate that balance in your own work? Something to chew on.
Definitely food for thought.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into ReactSpark today.